What if the most valuable thing in the room has been sitting in your grandmother's attic for 50 years? The word antique has a legal threshold. US customs law defines an antique as any object at least 100 years old. That single number separates a collectible from a cultural artifact with serious market value. Collecting valuable objects as a wealth strategy is ancient. Roman aristocrats paid fortunes for Greek antiques as early as the 2nd century BCE, treating foreign craftsmanship as a store of prestige. From furniture to fine art to rare bourbon, the principle hasn't changed. Scarcity plus history equals enduring value. Psychologists call it the contagion heuristic, the belief that objects absorb the essence of the people and events they touched. A chair owned by a historical figure feels different than an identical chair from a furniture store, even when the wood is the same. Consider the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, a selection of rare, hand-selected whiskies released each fall in strictly limited quantities. It doesn't merely sell bourbon, it sells history bottled under pressure, aged in silence, and opened only when the time is exactly right. The collection draws its soul from figures like George Thomas Stagg, a driving force of the post-Civil War bourbon industry. Stagg helped transform American whiskey from a regional drink into a craft with national prestige, a legacy that still commands premium prices today. The Buffalo Trace Antique Collection consists of 5 limited edition whiskies released each fall, 5 expressions, 5 flavor profiles, 5 windows into decades of American distilling craft. Each bottle represents a specific year of aging that can't be replicated or rushed. One of those 5 is Eagle Rare 17-year-old bourbon. 17 years in charred oak barrels means 17 winters of temperature swings, pulling flavor in and out of the wood. By the time it's bottled, roughly half the liquid has evaporated, what distillers call the angel's share. But here's where collectors get burned. Not all vintage objects are valuable or rare. A mass-produced ceramic figurine from the 1970s is vintage. It's not an antique, it's not scarce, and calling it an investment is how attics fill up with regret. Genuine antique value rests on 3 pillars: age, scarcity, and provenance. Age provides the legal threshold, scarcity creates demand. Provenance, the documented chain of ownership, transforms a beautiful old object into a verifiable story worth paying for. The Sazerac Rye, 18-year-old, another entry in the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, makes the scarcity case plainly. Rye whiskey aged 18 years is extraordinarily rare because most distilleries can't afford to hold inventory that long. The ones that can charge accordingly. Evaporation is only part of the story. As whiskey ages, the liquid expands into charred wood during summer heat and contracts back in winter cold. Each cycle extracts different compounds: vanillin, tannins, caramel-like lactones, layering flavors that a younger spirit simply cannot possess. Here's the counterintuitive twist. During the 2008 financial crisis, the Knight Frank Luxury Investment Index recorded that rare whiskey prices surged as investors sought alternative assets, while global equities lost roughly half their value. When confidence in abstract financial instruments collapsed, collectors moved toward objects they could physically hold and verify. The Buffalo Trace Antique Collection showcases distillers who've spent careers learning exactly when to cut a barrel, when to blend, and when to leave the whiskey alone. That expertise isn't scalable. It's irreplaceable. The Thomas H. Handy Sazerac Straight Rye is bottled uncut and unfiltered. Nothing added, nothing removed after aging. What enters the bottle is exactly what the barrel produced. For collectors, that authenticity is the entire point. Remember, the attic from the opening. The antique market runs on exactly that premise. Somewhere, right now, A piece of furniture, a signed document, or a sealed bottle is sitting unrecognized in storage, and someone with knowledge is about to find it. The idea that antiques don't belong in modern homes is outdated. Interior designers in 2024 routinely blend mid-century antiques with contemporary architecture. A 19th century writing desk in a minimalist apartment isn't a contradiction, it's a conversation starter. But here's where it gets genuinely harder. The antique market has always attracted skilled forgers. A convincing reproduction can fool casual buyers and even some dealers. Provenance documentation isn't just a nice detail, it's the primary defense against paying full price for a lie. Major auction houses employ specialists who use dendrochronology, tree ring dating, to verify when timber was felled, then cross-reference construction techniques against historical records. Christie's and Sotheby's both maintain dedicated materials labs for exactly this purpose. The evidence lives in the imperfections that hand tools leave behind. Here's the surprise. The Buffalo Trace Antique Collection is set to include E. H. Taylor bottled-in-bond bourbon, starting in 2025. Adding a bottled-in-bond expression to an already legendary lineup signals that the collection itself is still evolving, still generating new chapters of collectible history. Bottled-in-bond is a legal designation established by the Bottled-in-Bond Act of 1897, one of the first consumer protection laws in American history. It guarantees the spirit was produced in a single distillery, in a single season, aged at least 4 years, and bottled at exactly 100 proof. Rare spirits have delivered striking returns. A bottle of George T. Stagg from the 2005 release retailed for several $1,000s. By the early 2020s, comparable bottles were clearing $2,000 at auction, not because the liquid changed, but because the supply didn't grow. The investment potential is real, but so is the risk. Antiques are illiquid. You can't sell a rare bourbon or a Georgian writing desk in 30 seconds the way you can sell a stock. Storage, insurance, and climate control add ongoing costs that erode returns if the collector isn't disciplined. Consider Michael Kravitz, a software engineer who began collecting bourbon purely out of curiosity in the early 2000s. By the time prices surged, his deep knowledge of distillery releases and aging profiles gave him an edge no late-arriving speculator could buy. Expertise accumulated over years is the real competitive advantage. Harlan Wheatley, Buffalo Trace's master distiller, has overseen the antique collection for decades. Under his watch, the distillery maintained aging stubs that most competitors liquidated early for cash flow. That single long-term decision, holding barrels others sold, created the collection's scarcity and its value. In 2014, a plain-looking Ming Dynasty chicken cup, a small porcelain bowl, sold at Sotheby's Hong Kong for $36 million. Its material cost was negligible. What the market paid for was 4 centuries of documented imperial history and the consensus of scholars who agreed it was irreplaceable. For anyone considering entering this world, the entry point is education, not expenditure. Auction house catalogs from Christie's, Sotheby's, or regional houses are free to browse and rank among the best crash courses in provenance, pricing, and what separates genuine antiques from expensive clutter. When the Staffordshire hoard was unearthed in England in 2009, over 3,000 pieces of Anglo-Saxon gold, it rewrote what historians knew about 7th century craftsmanship. Without that physical survival, the techniques used to produce it would have remained unknown. Objects carry knowledge that no written record preserved. George Thomas Stagg built something in the post-Civil War bourbon industry that outlasted his own lifetime by more than a century. His name on a bottle today commands serious attention at auction. That's not nostalgia. That's the compound interest of genuine historical significance. Every category of antique collecting rewards one trait above all others: patience. The Eagle Rare 17-year-old spent 17 years in a barrel before anyone tasted it. Collectors who profit from antiques spend years building knowledge before they spend serious money. Here's something you can do in the next 10 minutes. Pick up any old object in your home and search its maker's mark on the Replacements Limited database, a catalogue of over 200,000 patterns. If it appears, you've got a starting point for age, manufacturer, and real market value. That's how the hunt actually begins. That thing in your grandmother's attic. Before you donate it, look it up. 1 hour of research could be the difference between a garage sale and a genuine discovery. The attic hasn't changed, but now you know what questions to ask.